My name is Stacy Randall, and I definitely have firsthand knowledge and experience of mental health issues. I was diagnosed with clinical depression about 3 years ago. I didn't really know that I was clinically depressed. I knew something was wrong. Didn't really know what it was. My family and friends, they knew, but me, I didn't actually know. There wasn't a name that I could put with it. I've heard of depression before, but it was something that I didn't think I suffered from. I just kind of felt, that I was tired. I was sleeping all the time. I would just probably put on the same thing every day if I could. I felt like I was in a daze. But I realized at some point that there was something wrong with me. My son went to my mother and he said, "What's wrong with my mom?" So that kind of jogged me out of my fog a little bit. So I knew that I had to get some kind of help. And so once I recognized that, then I did make an effort, and it was just a sense of desperation. I can actually remember that day I went to church one Sunday and I saw Pastor Dobbs Wiggins in the hallway. I'd never met her before. I knew who she was, but it was just an act of desperation because I knew that I needed some kind of help. And I know that I had people praying for me, and my mother prayed for me fastidiously, I know, and my friends, but I needed some additional help. And I really am thankful that I was able to make that connection and realize that I needed help and get the help that I needed. So 3 years out, I'm surviving. I've survived. I don't say I'm completely cured, but I don't have to go through counseling or see Dr. Wiggins anymore, thank goodness, even though I love to see her. But I don't have to take medication. It's just more at this point self-awareness. If I feel some of those same symptoms coming back, then I'm able to know that I need to kind of step back and maybe recalibrate in my life. So you can definitely survive depression, and you're not crazy if you're depressed.
My name is Shirley Johnson, and I'm going to talk to you about what happened to me in 2001. During the 9/11 period, they showed the 9/11 action on a camera in our office, and some of the ladies were hysterical, and I went in to talk to some of them and try to calm them down. I didn't get excited, I didn't get upset, but when I went home that night, I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel like myself. I didn't want to watch TV. I didn't talk to my children or my family. I went straight to bed. I didn't eat. Next morning I got up, went to work, and this went on for almost a month. And then I kept feeling so bad, so disoriented, so not myself. And I knew that something was wrong because I'm generally always in control of me. So I went to my doctor and I explained to her that I felt an awful depression. And I said, I'm just so depressed, I just can't function properly. And she asked me some things that I had experienced, and I told her, and she said, sounds like you are depressed. She said, I'm going to give you an antidepressant and we'll see how that works. Well, I was during the same period of time, I was experiencing some digestive problems due to a hiatal hernia in my esophagus. And I was going to another doctor. And when I went to him to talk to him, he was all excited. He said, "Oh, Miss Johnson, you've lost 20 pounds. This is wonderful." And he said, "What did you do?" I said, "Well, I couldn't eat." I said, "I haven't eaten anything." I said, "I've been so depressed, I haven't really been functioning properly." And he said, "Depressed?" And he went through my chart, and he said, "You've been on this medication for a year, and you're just starting to have it." I said, "Well, not really." I said, "I have been feeling kind of out of body for a long time, but it really came to a head during my 9/11. And he said, "Well," he said, "one of the medications that I've been giving you, the side effects are depression." and we'll just cut that in half and you'll take less. I said, no, we'll cut it out. I said, I don't want anything that's going to make me feel like I've been feeling. Well, I took this medication, and I had to go back to my doctor, and she explained to me, once you start feeling better, don't stop taking the medication. We'll gradually take you off of it once you start feeling better. Well, this was in October of 2001, and I took the medication for 2 years and a half. And I did start feeling better. I felt less threatened, but during this period of time, I could get in my car, because I got off work at 6 o'clock. I could get in my car and start home and had no idea what happened, how I got home, or whether I got home. One day, I got in my car at 6 o'clock, and at 10:30, I was over on Mockingbird Lane. I don't even know how I got there. You feel so lost and so out of control until you don't know. You feel that is one of the reasons I thought that I needed to go to the doctor, when I felt like I could just drive off a bridge, because I don't like feeling this way. You do not want to feel that you have lost control, that you have no relationship or a connection with anybody. I couldn't even pray. And one of the things, the medication was good, but I feel like the prayers, I have a prayer partner, and she prayed for me daily. I could call her night and day, and she would talk to me. She would call me to check on me if she hadn't heard from me. And I kept telling her, I said, I can't pray. I can't pray. I said, all I can say is, Lord, have mercy. And she said, you're praying when you say that. And I know I felt it, but I didn't have the connection with God that I had had before. And that was one of the main reasons that I felt so disoriented. But mental health is weird. It's not something that should be ignored, because a lot of people feel like, well, she's just crazy. But it's serious. And one of the main reasons that people ignore it is because there's no swelling, there are no scars, there are no bleeding sores, and there's no physical pain. But the mental pain is much more severe, and it's much more damaging. And I feel that anybody has any problems, you have problems of thinking, remembering, worrying, and you constantly feel heavy and out of sorts, you have a problem that you should address, and address it immediately.
My name is Arthur Porter, and I am 63 years old. So growing up in the 50s and 60s and 70s, there was a lot of mental health issues in my family. My grandmother, my two uncles, some of my aunties, I saw my cousins, my brothers, two of my brothers, and even myself, really, because during that time, it was just said that you was crazy, or you was mentally retarded. And so we saw this type of mindset in every family. Everybody that we knew, everybody that we grew up with, had this type of mindset. So we was ashamed of our relatives if they had any type of mental issues. And that's even today. I mean, even today people will say pray about it, or they're not going to claim it. Well, it's real. So you claim it or you don't claim it, but what we do is that we, as a community, we take it and we hide it. Give you an example. When my brother, which is 1 year older than I am, when he became a schizophrenic, he was sent to Terrell Mental Hospital in Terrell, Texas. And that's where they used to send everybody, and when people will ask me where was he, I would say he's in California. That was that's what I said, and which today I regret that I did that. But today we still do that. We still try to hide mental illness, and instead of embracing it and trying to figure out how to deal with it and how to get help for it, we choose to hide it. And my second to the youngest brother, he had a mental problem, and he was killed by a police officer because he had a gun and he discharged it. And he went into my father's apartment and the police came, someone called the police, and he ended up being handcuffed with his hands behind his back. As he laid on the floor, he was shot in the back, you know. And that right there took my family, my whole family, into a deep depression. And it took me 10 years before I could mention my brother's name without crying. 10 years. And my mother, she just passed this past December, and she took that to her grave. Every year around my brother's birthday and around the time that he was killed, she'd go into this deep, deep depression. And I used to, try to tell her, you need to get over it. You know what? I had to learn that step back and let her grieve, because she was still grieving. When people talk about closure, she never had closure, and guys, we try to pretend like things didn't happen or it wasn't the way it was, and we just want to just move on with our life. So we don't choose to deal with our situation or our family member's situation or a friend's situation. So mental health is real, and if the question is asked, what can the church do or how can the church help? Well, first of all, we are the church. So if we are still in denial and we'll continue to deny this, how can we deal with this issue when we are the one that's pushing it under the rug? So we have to first accept it and understand it and deal with it. So if you have any type of mental health issues, or your family members or friends, please get help. Please encourage them to get help. Help is out there.
Beatrice Neely. I'm a longtime member of St. Luke, and I wanted to share a little bit about my experience with mental health and mental illness. I'm a professional social worker, and obviously through my education I learned a lot about mental illness, treatment, therapies, etc. But personally I was impacted through my children, who both had bouts of depression, bipolar disorder, and it was very difficult to. I remember when I was trying to find out what was wrong with my son, going through the schools, trying to get evaluations, all of those kinds of things. As they became teenagers, I tried to keep them involved, in the church. Sometimes it was difficult, but they did pretty well, but still, heavily dealing with medications and therapies and that kind of thing. Kind of kept a lot of it hidden, for their own. I suppose that peers probably would not necessarily understand that what they were going through. And so we did not talk much about it, but it did impact. It impacted my marriage. It impacted, the education that they received. And my son particularly has had a lot of difficulty, and he is. I just got word today that he was being released from the state hospital very soon. So we cried out to the church a few times asking for support. He actually got up one time during a revival and asked for some support. I've spoken with other parents who, once they find, I remember the thing that impacted me where I began to share my story with an individual, a fellow church member who was going through some things with her own children. And I was in the bathroom at the retirement event for Pastor Holmes, where Nancy Wilson was singing. And I had gone into the bathroom, and I don't know what happened, how we got into this conversation, but this woman and I began to share about what we were going through as parents with our teenage children who were suffering with depression and other types of maybe misdiagnosed illnesses. And we formed a bond at that time, and kept in touch, and we still talk to each other a lot about off and on, and about what's going on. So I was so glad to find someone. I think I made a comment. I said, you don't really know. Nobody knows what I'm going through. And she said, maybe I do. And so one of the struggles that I've had in the last few years has been feeling alone, feeling that my son's peers, who he knew as little kids when they were small, they seemed to be successful and doing well. They graduated from college and advanced degrees and good jobs, but he has not been able to achieve that type of success, and that's really it's hard. It's really hard. And the success that we're able to wrap our minds around, I guess, is the fact that, he takes his medication and he's going to be released from the hospital, and we tried college, but that didn't even last one day. And just all of those things, he used to come to church with me as a teenager, and I remember him getting into a situation where he had an outburst and actually was handcuffed in the hallway at the church, in front of the counting room, handcuffed and taken, and a ticket was written at the church. And so, I think that impacted him in terms of whether he really wanted to, be a part and participate in the church. So he found another church that he would go to occasionally when he was, mentally able to go. So I would say that the church has, at this point, individuals have been very supportive of me, but as an institution or as an organization, I have not found the kind of support that I wish that we had. I feel alone. I feel and actually embarrassed a lot. I mean, actually, and even though my rational social work brain says, people are different, and mental illnesses are certainly illnesses that need to be treated. I know that in my rational mind. I know it in my social work mind. I know all of that. I go to work every day, and I talk to people with various mental and physical illnesses, and I'm able to provide services. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor, but I do have the ability to sit and talk with people and try to sort through some of the issues that they're going through. But unfortunately, it just doesn't work the same with your own family. So it's just hard. It's just pretty hard, and I thank God that we're finally beginning to talk about it and to maybe do some ministry in that regard. I learned, I said today that he was going to be released from the hospital, and it's very, I'm glad, but it's also kind of scary because he's been institutionalized for so long, about more than a year. And when I would make those treks to go and visit him, he was in, the drive up there by myself, and the visitation by myself, and the drive back by myself, and all of those things that went along with it. We even had 3 years of incarceration, and all of that was a part of that, kind of because of the mental illness and the things that he was not able to control. Then we went through all of that, and there were a few people that knew that, and a few people that kind of helped me and wrote letters and that kind of stuff. But it's still pretty difficult, and I don't know. At this point, as I get older, I begin to wonder who will look out for them.